So here we go. I've got the tail end of my yarn, and first of all, what we practiced yesterday was how to hold an appropriate tension. So the way I do that is using my left hand. If you're left-handed, then you would be using your right hand. I would put the tail end of my yarn over my little finger, under the ring finger, over the middle finger, under the first finger, and just wrap it round twice. And this will allow me to control the yarn in an appropriate way, working with the working end, which is attached to the skein of yarn. So first of all, what we need to create is a slip knot, and the way we did that was grabbing the tail end of the yarn and creating a loop going over the working end. So you've got a loop, reaching with your crochet hook, reaching into the loop from underneath, grabbing the working end of your yarn and pulling through, which creates a slip knot. It's called a slip knot because you can adjust it, can make it bigger or smaller. And as I said yesterday, I would recommend that you create your first foundation chain fairly loose, because it will allow you to see your stitches well, and it will allow you to go into the back of the stitches easier when you're working your single crochet row, which is what we did for our first row. So to create your foundation chain, you simply grab the working end of your yarn and pull through the loop that you've got on your hook, and repeat this process. For the sake of this, I will create 10 stitches. So I've got 2, 3, and whilst I'm going through, you can see that you can clearly see the stitches 1, 2, 3. You can count them easily as you go along, and you can control the tension with your finger as the yarn glides through your fingers. So I'm going to make 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I've got a foundation chain made up of 10 stitches, and if you need to count it because you lose your count as you go along, it's fairly easy to count. What you're looking out for is the little V shapes that we've talked about yesterday. So you can see these in the front of your foundation chain. So you've got a V here. Each of those will create a stitch, and this is the top of your stitches. And what you're looking for once you work into the back of the stitches is essentially, when I turn my work around like this, those little back loops is what you're going to be going into. So you've got them here, 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 all the way along. So each stitch will have one of those little back loops, which if you look at it from the side, I call them little humps because they look like little humps. They are clearly visible. Those are your back loops. So this will allow you, as I mentioned yesterday, to create a very even and pretty edge for your work, because what you're going to be left with once you've done your first single crochet row and start working your work progressing, it will allow it to keep these lovely V-shaped stitches at the bottom of your work, which will create an even and nice edge. So what we did yesterday, we worked for the first row, we worked a single crochet row. And if you remember, the way we worked single crochets is that you need to first of all identify the back loop of your first stitch, which is here. So I stitch into the back loop of my first stitch. I pick up that back loop, I yarn over, which basically means putting your yarn over your hook. So you go under the yarn and put the yarn over your hook, grab the yarn with your hook and pull through that back loop. And at this point you end up with 2 loops on your hook. What you then need to do is you go under the yarn again, grab your yarn, so yarn over and pull through both of those loops on your hook. In crochet, the way we work each and every single stitch is that when the stitch is ready, you end up with 1 single loop on your hook. So that's how you know you have completed a stitch. So that was our first single crochet stitch, which we worked into the back loop of our first foundation stitch here. So that's basically what we need to repeat all the way along. So I'll go ahead and create 9 more single crochet stitches by going into the back loop of my stitches that I've created in my foundation chain. So you identify your next back loop, which will be here. You put your hook through, I don't know if you can see that. I pick that back loop up, I yarn over, grab my yarn, pull through. Again, you've ended up with your 2 loops on the hook, yarn over again, grab your yarn and pull through both. So I've now got 2 single crochet stitches, and you just carry on as such. So your third back loop will be here on the top. I don't know if you can see that. So you go through, yarn over, grab your yarn, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, so once again you grab your back loop, yarn over, pull through, you've got your 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2, and I carry on as such all the way along, creating those 10 single crochet stitches. I've got 4 left. I don't know if you can see that very clearly on the camera, but you've got 1, 2, 3, 4. It's very important, as we talked about this yesterday, to make sure that you always stitch into the last stitch at the end of each row, because otherwise your work will end up uneven as you keep going up the rows. You will lose a stitch effectively in each row, and you don't want to be doing that unless you're shaping your work as such, which you could, of course, if that's what the pattern requires. So this is my last stitch. I don't know, it's clearly visible here. That's the back loop of my last stitch. So I put my hook under, pick up that stitch, yarn over, pull through. I've got my 2 hoops on the hook, yarn over, pull through 2, and we've created our single crochet row. And the bottom of it, you can now clearly see those little V shapes, really quite pretty and even. So that's going to be the edge of your work, the bottom edge of your work. Okay, so in order to work the second row, which was a half double crochet, I'm using US terminology. There's US and UK crochet terminology. I tend to use the US terminology because I find that most of the crochet patterns that I work with use US terminology. So in order to work your second row, which is going to be a half double crochet row, you need to turn your work. By turning your work, I mean literally flip it over like that. And then you've got a choice really. I don't normally chain one when I'm working a half double crochet, but you can. Chaining one basically just means creating a chain, a stitch, at the end of your work, just to create some height. For the sake of this video, I will show you that way. But you don't have to. Half double crochets are still sort of fairly low stitches, so I don't always chain one at the beginning of my row, but you can do. So to work your half double crochet, you start with, before you insert your hook into the first stitch, you have to yarn over. So as we did with the single crochets, with half doubles, yarn over by putting our hook underneath the working end of the yarn. And then what you then do here is identify your first stitch here at the beginning of the row, and with that yarn that you've yarned over, so you've got effectively now already 2 loops on your hook, you put your hook through the first stitch, so the first V on the top, both the front loop and the back loop, put your hook through, yarn over, grab your yarn, pull up a loop, which creates your 3rd loop on the hook. So at this point you should end up with 3 loops on your hook, and then you yarn over once again and pull through all 3 of those, which will create your first half double crochet stitch. And like I mentioned earlier, I've ended up with 1 loop on the hook, which tells me I have finished creating this stitch. So once again, before I start, I identify my next stitch, which will be here, this stitch. I yarn over, insert my hook into that stitch, yarn over, grab my yarn, pull up a loop. I've got my 3 loops on the hook, clearly visible. Yarn over once again, grab my yarn and pull through all 3. Now it's quite important that you keep a loose, fairly loose tension, so that your work doesn't end up too tight. And that's where holding an appropriate tension comes into play. Okay, so my next stitch will be here. So I'm going to have to go into that little hole. That will be my next one, and then as I work along, I'm going into each of these. Okay, so to create the next half double, just like we did before, we yarn over, put our hook through the next stitch, both the front loop and the back loop. So I've effectively got 2 loops on my yarn here, on my hook here, sorry. I yarn over, pull up a loop, I've got my 3 loops on the hook, yarn over again, pull through all 3, and you carry on as such. So yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3, yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3, and you carry on like this until you reach the end of your row. So I yarn over, insert my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all 3. And you can see what you end up with is a slightly taller row than our single crochet rows. A little bit closer up. It looks a little bit different as well. But similarly to the single crochet rows, you will end up with those lovely V-shaped stitches on the top, which is what we are going to be working into when we're working our next row. Okay, to finish this row, I've got 1, 2, 3 more stitches, and there's that last stitch. When I come to it, I'll show you a bit more how to identify that. So I've got 1 where I yarn over, put my hook through, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through all three. That was one. It's my second, penultimate stitch, and we've arrived to the last stitch. And as you can see, that last stitch is not that easily visible, but you can see that this bit still sticks out, which tells me that there is still one stitch to work. Because if I finished here and started to work my next row, then I've ended up with 9 stitches as opposed to 10, which you can count by counting the little V's on the top. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. So I've still got one down here, and that stitch will be, if you turn your work so you can see it from the top, there is the little V. There's the front loop of your V, and there's your black back loop. So you can see that there is still one stitch to work. So I yarn over, find that one stitch, find both the front and the back loop of that stitch, and I've got it 2 on my hook, front and back. I yarn over, grab my yarn, pull up a loop, and I've got my 3 loops on the hook, yarn over again, and pull through all 3. So that has now created an even edge on this side, which tells me I've worked the last stitch, and it will come out even as I carry on. I hope that makes sense. So that was our foundation chain. The first row was worked in single crochet, and this second row we worked in half double crochets. So in order to create your double crochet row, which is what we are going to be doing next, what you need to do once again is turn your work. This is the front of your work now. So the single crochets were worked on the front. Then we worked the half doubles going backwards on the back. That's the back of your work. And now we're turning over again. This is the front of your work. It looks prettier. If you really observe it, it looks prettier and neater. It's got a nice even stitch definition. So here again, you can see on the top, you've got your little V's. Those are your stitches you're going to be working into when you're creating your double crochets. Now to create double crochets, I would chain 2 to begin with to create that height that will allow you to create your double crochets. Now those 2 chains don't count as stitches. So when you work your first double crochet stitch of the row, you will be looking for the first stitch at the bottom, which will be here. So you pick that one up, that will be your first stitch, because you worked 2 chain stitches on top of that. That was 1 and 2. Those were the 2 chain stitches. So if you look at it from the top, they look like V stitches. They all look the same really, because they all look like foundation chain stitches. But these 2 were the stitches that we chained, whereas that third one down is the stitch that we're looking for. That's our first stitch of the 10 stitch row that we're working. So to create your first double crochet stitch, very similar to the half double crochets, you start with yarning over, inserting your hook through that first stitch, both the front loop and the back loop. You pull up a loop, at which point, similar to half double crochets, when you're crocheting double crochets, which is what we're working on now, you end up with 3 loops on your hook, and then you yarn over again. And what you do here is you pull through 2 of those loops on your hook. So not all 3, only 2. At which point you will then end up with 2 loops left on your hook, which tells me I've still got something to do. My stitch is not ready because I've still got 2 loops left on my hook. So what I need to do to finish this double crochet stitch is to yarn over again, grab my yarn and pull through both of those remaining loops on my hook. So I've got my one loop on my hook, which tells me I have finished this first double crochet stitch. So once again, what I did was yarn over, insert your hook through your next stitch, you grab your yarn, pull up a loop, you've got your 3 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through 2 of those 3, yarn over again and pull through the last 2. So that was my second double crochet stitch of the 10 in this row. So I yarn over, insert my hook, grab my yarn, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through the last 2. And now you can see you're creating your double crochet stitches here. Got 1, 2, 3, and these are those little chain stitches that we've created at the beginning of our row. So you've worked 3 stitches here. They're starting to form nicely, and the little V's on the top, just like it does with all the previous rows, is starting to become visible. Okay, so we work to the end of this row to create our 10 double crochet stitches. So I yarned over, put my hook through both the front and back loop of the next stitch, yarn over, grab my yarn, pull up a loop. I've got my 3 loops on the hook. I yarn over again, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through the last 2. And you keep doing that until you reach the end of your row. Yarn over, insert your hook in the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, grab your yarn, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And I've got 3 more stitches left. Here again, it's important that you identify all your remaining stitches, and you need to stitch into that last stitch as well. So I've got 1, there's a little hole there, you can see that's going to be my next stitch. I've got 2, and that's the 3rd one there, but I'll show you that when I get to it. So you yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Yarn over, insert my hook into that penultimate stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. I've got 3 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. And here we are. I've got 1 more stitch left at the end of my double crochet row, and you can see that there is 1 more stitch left, similarly to the previous row, because you've still got your work, the previous row, kind of sticking out at the end. So I've not come all the way to the end. There's still 1 more stitch left there. And similarly to the last row, you've got to have a look at where the last stitch is and identify the front and the back loop of that last stitch. If I turn it like this, I can show you I've got my front loop here and the back loop just about visible, a little bit hiding down there. It has a tendency to go down, but that's really what you're looking for. You've got to pick that up as such. with your hook. Okay, so I yarn over, insert my hook through both the front and the back loop. I've got them both there. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and you have created your double crochet row. You've got 10 double crochet stitches, little posts like that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, plus you've got your 2 chain stitches at the beginning. So that was our double crochet row. Our next row will be a treble crochet row. So it's quite similar to double crochet, except it's gonna be even taller. So here you can see your foundation chain down here, your single crochet row almost disappearing, quite small, your half double stitches here, and your doubles up on the top. So as we go along, the stitches are getting taller as such, because that's how we are working the sequence. To create your treble crochet row, just gonna pull a little bit of yarn because I will need a bit more for that. You turn your work over. For a treble crochet row, you start with chaining either 3 or 4. Different patterns do it differently. I tend to chain 3. So you chain 3, 1, 2, 3, to create that height there at the beginning of your row. And yet again, just like in the previous row for your double crochets, you need to identify the first stitch that you're going to be going into, which is at the bottom. So you've got your 3 chain stitches, 1, 2, 3, and it is going to be your next one down here that you're going to aim to go into for your first treble crochet. Down here, this stitch here. Okay, so to create your first treble crochet, you yarn over twice, which means twisting your yarn over your hook twice. So that's 1, 2. So before you even insert your hook, you've already got 3 loops on your hook, clearly visible. Okay, so once you've got your 3 loops, you've yarned over twice, then you insert your hook into your first stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop. So that will create your 4th loop on the hook. Now it's important to pull the yarn up a little bit so it creates the roughly the same height as your chain stitches, because that is going to give the height to your treble crochet row. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 loops on your hook. So then what you do is you yarn over, pull through the first 2. So from 4 you ended up with 3. Yarn over again, pull through 2. From 3 you ended up with 2, which still tells me I've still got something to do because I have got 2 loops on the hook, and as I mentioned before in crochet, the aim at the end of each stitch is to end up with 1 single loop on your hook. So to finish your first treble crochet stitch, you need to yarn over again, grab your yarn and pull through those last 2 loops on your hook. Okay, and now I've got my last remaining loop on the hook. So that was my first, and you can see it here, I separate it from the chains that I've created at the beginning of the row. that's my first treble crochet stitch as such. Okay, so to create the next treble crochet stitch, you have to effectively repeat the process. So you've got your little V's on the top here, clearly visible. You're going to be continuing your work, working into those stitches. So my next stitch will be the one along the bottom of the one I've just worked. So I will be looking for the next stitch to pick that up with my hook once I've done the yarn overs. Okay, so to create your second treble crochet stitch, you yarn over twice, insert your hook into that stitch, pull up a loop, create a bit of height. You need to be a bit generous with your yarn here. That's why for your treble crochets it will use up more yarn because it needs to have that height. I've got my 4 loops on the hook, which is what I need. So I yarn over, grab my yarn, pull through the first 2, yarn over again, grab my yarn, pull through the next 2, yarn over, pull through the last 2. So effectively you need 4 loops on your hook when you start working your stitch. So I've got 1, 2, 3, and the 4th is created by inserting my hook and pulling up that last loop. So I've got the 4 before I start to work them all off my hook by pulling through 2 at a time. Each time I grab my yarn and pull through 2. So I grab my yarn, pull through 2, grab my yarn again, pull through 2, and pull through the last 2. So I've got 3 treble crochets there now, starting to form. So they are quite tall, which is what you want. So you've got 3 large posts of treble crochets here. Okay, so we've got 7 left out of the 10. So you keep creating them as you go along by yarning over twice, inserting your hook into the next stitch, pull up a loop to create the 4 loops on your hook, pull up some yarn to create that height, yarn over, grab your yarn, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through the last 2. Okay, so yarn over twice, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through the last 2. And yet again, you can see on the top of your treble crochet stitches the little V's, which will be your next row, which will help you to identify the stitches you need to aim for in your next row. These are the stitches that are creating on the top now, little V shapes again. Okay, a bit more yarn. So once again, I yarn over twice, insert my hook, pull up a loop, got my 4 loops on my hook, 1, 2, 3, 4. I yarn over, pull through 1, 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and yarn over, pull through the last 2. And you carry on as such. Yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through the last 2. Okay, and I've got 1, 2, 3 left to work, so I should have 7 that I've already made. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, and the chains that we began with at the beginning of the row, but that does not count as a treble crochet stitch, but Okay, so I yarn over twice, insert my hook into both the front and the back loop of the stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through the last 2, yarn over twice, insert my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through your last 2 to end up with that single loop on your hook. And we've arrived to the end of our row. We've got one more stitch left. Here again you can see that you have got one more stitch left because it doesn't look finished. Okay, so yet again the same thing as in the previous rows, you need to identify that last stitch here. So you need a front loop and a back loop. Okay, so the last stitch is fairly well defined here and is fairly visible. This is what you're going to be aiming for. You've got to have both the front loop and the back loop of your last stitch. Okay, so what we need to do first of all is yarn over twice, insert the hook into that stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop to have our 4 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through the last 2. So we've created 10 treble crochet stitches. So to count them is relatively easy because they're very visible. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So you've got your 10th there. Just a bit closer here. And you've got your chain stitches here, the 3 chains that you've created at the beginning of your row. And that is how we made our treble crochets.